orange shirt day. It's an orange shirt that I would usually wear in September, the end of September, for Orange Shirt Day. Remember what Orange Shirt Day is about? Orange Shirt Day is a day when we remember the people who were sent to residential schools. Now, it's called the Orange Shirt Day because there's a story of someone who was given a brand new orange shirt to wear to school and was very happy, very excited. But when she got to school, one of the rules in schools was they took away everything you brought from your community. So her orange shirt was taken away. So now, on Orange Shirt Day, people wear orange shirts to remember the residential schools. This book was a book that was put together just before the United Church turned 75. And it's stories about the United Church of Canada. This one's called Far From Home. Janine woke up to the sound of a gigantic crash of thunder right outside the window. She sat up and pulled the blanket up around her chin. Crash! Boom! Another bolt of lightning flashed across the sky. Janine felt lonely and a little bit scared. She missed Mom and Dad. She missed her house. Home and her own familiar room seemed very far away. David! David, are you awake? She whispered very loudly at the door of David's room. David turned over but didn't wake up. David! He said a little louder. What? Said David. Another crash of thunder woke him up completely, and he sat up in bed. Janine turned on the light switch, but nothing happened. There was no electricity. Now they were both scared. Do you think we should wake up Gran? Asked David, but Gran was already awake. They could hear her humming cheerfully as she came down the hallway. The bright circle of light from her flashlight danced on the walls. I guess the storm woke you up too. She looked at the frightened faces. You okay? I feel like home is very far away, said Janine. Oh, you're probably a bit homesick, said Gran. It's hard to wake up in a strange place. Let's go to the living room and watch the storm. I'll make some hot chocolate. Gran heated milk on the gas burner, and David and Janine watched the lightning flash. Sometimes it was so bright they could see the trees swaying in the wind. While they sipped the hot chocolate, Gran found something interesting for a story from the painted trunk. Gran showed what she had found. It was a little circle, wound with colored ribbons. 4 colored feathers hung from strips of leather. The inside was woven like a spider's web. Right there. It was given to me by an Ojibwe woman, said Gran. It's a dream catcher. In her tradition, dream catchers catch the good dreams and save them, but they let the bad dreams pass through. A dream catcher once helped a little girl far from home. Susie was Ojibwe. She lived up north with her family. Her aunts and her uncles, her grandparents, her brothers, her sisters, her mother and father, all lived in the little village. They hunted on the land and made a good living. Susie was very happy, until one day the government said she had to go to residential school. School wasn't just around the block, it was far away down south. Susie had to live there with all the other Aboriginal children who were sent away to residential schools. She stayed there for many months of the year. She couldn't even go home for visits. Susie was just 6 when she had to leave all her family and go to school. Can you imagine what it would have been like to be away from your family for 10 months at a time when you were that young? She cried and she cried. Her grandmother begged and pleaded to let her stay home, but that was the law. It wasn't a good law, and it wasn't fair, but she had to go. At the residential school, Susie was told she couldn't speak Ojibwe. She had to speak English. She wasn't allowed to dance the dances her grandmother had taught her. She couldn't even wear her beautiful beaded moccasins. The teachers told her she wasn't good if she was Ojibwe. She should learn to be like a white person. Some of them were mean. Susie was very lonely and very sad. She missed her family and she missed her home, and she cried herself at night. Susie had a little dream catcher. Her grandmother gave it to her just before she left. Susie kept it hidden because she knew if anyone found it, they would take it away. Sometimes at night, she took the dream catcher out of its hiding place and held it. She remembered the stories her grandmother told her, and she tried to be brave. She hugged the dream catcher very tight and hoped for this sad time to end. Janine tried to imagine what it was like for Susie, so far from home. 3 weeks is a long time to be away, even with Gran, she said. Imagine a whole year. It doesn't seem fair, said David. Didn't anyone do anything to stop it? I wish they had, said Gran. Sadly, the United Church was a part of the problem. The United Church helped run some of the schools. I guess people thought they were helping, but it was a mistake. We thought our ways of doing things were better. We didn't respect their ways. We made them feel bad about who they were, and that really hurt people. We didn't even see how much the residential schools hurt children like Susie and their families and their communities. Did the church ever say sorry? Asked Janine. Well, we said sorry, said Gran. The whole church said sorry. But sometimes just words aren't enough. We have to do something to really show that we mean it and want to make things better. Because unfortunately, the hurt that was done to Susie and others was passed on to their children. That's why we have something called the Healing Fund. Gran told them how the Healing Fund collected money, and the money was used to help Aboriginal people work together to heal those hurts caused by residential schools. Janine thought about little Susie, so lonely and sad. As soon as I get home, I'm going to see if our family can give something to the Healing Fund, she decided. Janine knew she'd never forget what happened to little Susie. Thought I'd tell that story today, read that story today, because June 21st is National Indigenous Persons Day. It's a day when we celebrate the gifts that Indigenous people have given to Canada. And in the church, we celebrate the gifts they've given to the church, but it's also time for us to stop and remember that sometimes the church hasn't been helpful. Stories like that. Happy Indigenous Persons Day.